Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two legendary warriors. On the left hand side we have It's a Drive-By Gorston, a fantastic name, up against Chosen One of the clan ODM, as the Warriors of Chaos meet the forces of the Dark Elves here on Iron Sand Desert. Should be a really good fun game, and much like the majority of Dark Elf battles, whoever's going to win the skirmish game could well and truly be in for a big thumping victory. So you can see the forces of the Chaos have decided to try and win that game with a bucket ton of Marauder Horsemen and Horse Masters dotted all the way along the front line. Going to be looking to out-skirmish the Dark Elves where possible. In the main battle line, we have a ton of cheap and cheerful Chaos Marauders, ready for a big old fat scrap. Happy to be here and good to get their teeth sunk into their enemy. And just behind them, we have some more of the elite Chaos Warriors. Well, more mid-tier infantry, but still 100 armor, silver shields. These guys can certainly pack a punch and chew their way through many a Dark Elf mid to light tier infantry. Interestingly enough, in the back line, we have two units of Chaos Knights with Lances. I'm a much bigger fan of the Lance variety than the basic one. That glorious charge of those Lances aimed down low can do some shattering damage to the enemy. And Dark Elves in particular are pretty squishy, so anything which does a load of burst damage to them tends to be pretty good. And leading the forces, we have the giant Duck Lord himself, the Everwatcher, the Big Bird, whatever you want to call him. He is a scary foe indeed. Stand or Die, Arcane Conduit, Final Transmutation, and Plague of Rust are his poisons of choice. Now for the forces of the Dark Elves, as expected, they're going very skirmish heavy here. We have triple Dark Rider Repeater Crossbowmen, some of the best skirmish cavalry in the game. They're fast, they're hard hitting, lovely armor piercing damage, and to protect them we do have two units of Dark Riders. To add to that rest of that skirmish game, we have two units of Scourge Runner Chariots, deadly long-range anti-large kind of masters, I suppose, of the skirmish game, with a double Dark Rider to protect them as well. Up in the skies, we have a Supreme Sorceress of Fire, so no Mama Marathi here, unfortunately, but still not bad at all. Supreme Sorceress is going to be coming in with a Burning Head as well as Fireball. Also, we do have the Black Horror, which is actually a pretty nifty little wind spell you don't get to see terribly often, and Arcane Conduit. For the main battle line, it's relatively basic stuff. We have Dread Spears dotted all the way along there just to hold the enemy back, with some more elite infantry slightly behind. We have the Black Guard of Nagrond, Black Heart Corsairs, as well as Haganeth Executioners, and some Dread Spears bringing up the rear. But the majority of the fight here is going to be a massive skirmish phase, as you would expect, before the main battle lines do reach. But the Horsemen taking earth-shattering damage there, down to about half health in one volley from those Dark Riders, who certainly got the best of the engagement there before being able to fall back. One thing they do lack, though, compared to the Marauder Horsemen, is the Horsemen do get to fire in a 360 arc of fire, whereas these poor little Dark Riders, when they're retreating, will not get to shoot at all. But the flip side of that is they punch much harder, although taking some huge damage there as well. As the Dark Riders burst forward, the giant Everwatcher is going to be using those big old bird wings to flap out aggressively, forcing back the Dark Elf skirmish. But the Dark Elves more than happy just to fall back kind of to this corner of the map here and try to protect it where possible. Marauder Horse Masters army looping around to this left-hand side as the Dark Elves do rearrange their battle line, getting ready to hold back the tide of chaos. Over on this far side, Horsemen once again starting to wave a few early shots. Dark Riders are going to be now applying some pressure, but they're going to be getting in a little bit of trouble here with the Everwatcher, who's certainly not a combatant that you want to deal with whatsoever. Massive missile resistance as well, so the Everwatcher could be a game-winning Lord choice in here if he can survive to the late game. Over on the far side, it looks like Dark Riders quite happily eating some of those javelins from the Horse Masters on their shields, just trying to absorb some of the damage to allow their skirmishers to come out in top on the long game. Dark Riders now bursting forwards and finally catching these Horse Masters with their pants down. Horsemen now being forced back. Really nice little bit of burst damage from the Dark Elves, and you can see the entire time they've been moving forwards, hitting and falling back, coming in different waves of combat and ranged troops, and now the Dark Elves are going to start advancing the battle line, pushing on to the chaos and applying some of that pressure. Scourge Runner Chariots, though, have taken pretty huge damage at this point, but still have all 6 of their models between both the units there, and the Everwatcher has finally launched himself right into the midst of the enemy, surrounding himself by Dark Riders, which is a good target for him to try and peel away, but looks like he has overextended a little bit, so rather wisely he's going to be pulled back here. Marauders are pushing forward, as well as the horsemen trying to wrap around the flank now and trying to get a big fat surround on the Dark Elves. If we have a nice little cinematic look down the battle line, the elite warriors of the Dark Elves should be able to drag their way through the majority of the Chaos forces, but it is a rather messy fight with fights going on all over the place, and a big fat burning head coming down on those Marauders, absolutely roasting them, as well as their horsemen allies. Really lovely damage there, but there's a big counter punch going down. Overcast Plague of Rust is meaning the Hageneth Executioners are getting butchered by some basic Chaos Marauders. Lovely upwards trade there in the centre by the Warriors of Chaos, but you can see all of their skirmish cav are being forced way back at this point, with the Dark Riders quite happy to loop shots up and over this main battle line. Marauders are forcing their way onto some Dark Riders, but Spearmen are here to at least hold them back for a time, and the Hageneth Executioners are slowly being put to the sword, but still holding on despite the initial damage. In the back line here, we can see it's just a big old gun line of Dark Riders who are slowly being whittled down. One unit is pretty much spent at this point, the other two are rather healthy, but the Squadron of Chariots as well being used as little mobile firing bases, simply going to be sitting back here raining terror down upon the Horsemasters. Blackguard of Nagrond looking incredibly healthy. We're getting another burning head coming down the line on top of some of these Marauders, trying to clear them and the Chaos Warriors away. And it is indeed the Black Horror doing some lovely damage, going to force off those Marauders, and they're pretty much going to be out of the game. Chaos Warriors may take a little nick or two as well from some of that damage, which was pretty scary stuff, although it's also going through the Hageneth Executioners and Dread Spears. The Black Horror cares not if you're a friend or foe. It's such a cool looking ability, but it really does kind of have a mind of its own, bouncing around the battlefield there. Really messy spread out fight now. It kind of got pushed into the corner, but the Dark Riders and the Dark Elves in general are kind of pushing out in all directions. Supreme Sorcerers are having a whale of a time, up to 70 kills high up in the skies. Hageneth Executioners fighting strong still, despite the magical kind of disadvantages they had early on. But a fat final transmutation is coming down here by the Everwatcher, catching both of these units, and that should be them pretty much done, especially with more Marauders pouring into the gap there. Dark Riders in the back line, as well as Squadron of Chariots, running very low on ammunition at this point, but still raining it down on the heavily armoured Chaos Warriors where possible. Supreme Sorcerers is going to be falling back as the Horsemen continue their reign of terror in this back line. Blackguard of Nagrond, though, doing a pretty fantastic job here. Looks like their unit is incredibly split up. We have two over here. Where are the rest of them? This is really bizarre. It looks like they're all over here on the right-hand side, trying to drag down some Chaos Knights who have really struggled to find good targets for the majority of the battle. Dark Riders once again bursting forward, trying to apply pressure onto the Horsemen, and it looks like they may be able to break one of the units off the field here, but for their troubles, they're getting pinned with javelins. You can see many a Horsemen do pay the cost there for that bold charge forward. Hageneth Executioners are now spent and done with, fleeing into the unknown of the deserts, and more Dark Elves are getting surrounded here. Chaos Marauders having a whale of a time. They're slowly getting whittled down, but equally the ammunition on the Warriors of Chaos front is incredibly low, and they still have a lot of key targets to take down in the form of the Black Guard, as well as these pesky Dark Riders and the Supreme Sorceress. But one thing certainly going rather well at the moment is the Great Dark here. The Everwatcher, 51 kills, and still has a bit of magic to boot as well, although he's used up quite a lot. Dark Riders have been finished off now, but at the same time, Horsemonsters did have to extinguish their ammunition to finish them off. It looks like they're going to be trying to get a big fat surround on the Blackguard of Nagrond, coming in for an alpha strike. Plague of Rust has gone down, minus 60 armor, and in comes all of the fast mobile elements. We have Knights, we have Horsemasters, we have the Everwatcher trying to shatter the Blackguard of Nagrond, but they are holding firm for now, retaliating with their mighty halberds, cleaving Chaos Warriors in half. Dark Riders are here to support as well, trying to fight in where possible, but beautiful play here by the Chaos, charging the Horsemen to drive back the Dark Riders to ensure they can finish off the Blackguard, but somehow these guys are standing firm. Had no idea how they managed to survive that, up to 105 kills. Plague of Rust still active, however, and they are looking relatively flimsy on health at this point. Red Spears need to get over there and support where possible. But it looks like Horsemen and Horsemasters now being used to drive back the Dark Elf skirmish force and push them away once more before perhaps returning to deal with the Black Guard. Spearmen quite happy to take this charge from the Horsemasters, who are triple bronze chevron at this point, up to 64 kills. They take the charge, deal a decent amount of damage back, but it looks like they are simply going to get overwhelmed by the more ferocious Viking-esque horsemen here, although Vikings didn't really use horses. And the Dread Spears are now being forced back. Chaos Knights have emerged as well to aid and support. Everwatcher trying to float over now to support the rest of his skirmish force. It looks like they've pretty much been slaughtered here. Nice charge by the Squadron of Chariots and Dark Riders combined. Really broke the backbone there of that Chaos skirmish force. Bounce power is incredibly even still, despite it being quite late in the battle. Dark Riders still have some ammunition left. Good ammo conservation for the most part so far by Chosen One, although wasting a few shots here into the Horsemasters who are already fleeing. Just charge in there and finish those guys off for good. A big fat fireball is going to be coming down, and it is going after those Chaos Knights with lances. And one fireball there slays 3 or 4 foes, doing some really nice damage. And these Knights certainly not going to be too happy about that, as they do line up for one last glorious charge. Looks like they are heading after these Dread Spears, who are slightly isolated at this point. So basically what the Force of Chaos want to do is just try to isolate Dark Elf targets like they have done with the Blackguard over here, finish them off, finish off these Dread Spears, float over here and break down the Hageneth Executioners who have somehow rallied, and just try and pick apart this Dark Elf build, as the Everwatch is going to be an absolute linebacker here, a hero of the people, floating forward, screeching, come here Dark Riders, flee before your true master, and he's coming in here and slapping some of them up as they do desperately retreat once more. Both these units now incredibly low on ammunition, just 1 volley left each. Supreme Sorceress, though, the longer this game goes on, the more fireballs she can drop. They are rather cheap spells. And yes, the Everwatcher does come in with magic resistance, but they will add up over time, eventually doing some nice damage. And the battle has become incredibly spread out. If we have a nice overarching view up here on our mountain perch, it is very thin for both troops. Bounce power still dead even, only 94 and 130 troops remaining. It's really going to come to who has the better late game management here, and it looks like the Dark Elves doing a fantastic job chasing off those Chaos Knights. Both units are done for at this point. Sacrificing troops to rout enemy is always good, and the Dark Riders simply going to be kiting the Everwatcher back as the Supreme Sorceress does dive down, trying to get some goodies on the Marauder Horsemasters, although they do turn to engage and force off the Dark Riders, although Squadron of Chariots are emerging from the mists of the desert here. So very close game. I'm going to fast forward it a little bit here, as it looks like there's going to be a little bit of cat and mouse action. Dark Riders expelling the last of their ammunition, aiming them on the Horsemasters, really trying to force off all the Chaos Warriors and leave the Everwatcher as the last man standing. Dark Elves getting some really nice picks, forcing off the Horsemasters and driving them off the edge of the battlefield. Squadron of Chariots are going to be used as well to break off those Chaos Marauders, and it looks like it is going to be the Everwatcher versus the world. Now, I don't think he has enough Winds of Magic left for a final transmutation. I think he's used up the majority of his Winds of Magic on Plague Rust, and we saw one of those earlier on as well. Supreme Sorceress is going to be firing balling down on the Everwatcher. You can see the Dark Elf player is slowly just inking or kind of forcing one unit after another just to slow down the Everwatcher where possible. You can see the Squadron Chariots currently moving forward to attack, as well as these Dark Riders moving in, and he has to sacrifice troops. I believe this is a tournament game, so he's just slowly getting troops in. It looks like we are going to be seeing one last upgraded final transmutation, a tiny bit too early by the Everwatcher. Well spotted by the Dark Elf player. He committed the Squadron of Chariots, who took huge damage, but he was just about to go in for an all-out assault. If he had done that and been hit by that final transmutation, it almost would have been a certain guaranteed victory for the Warriors of Chaos, but it looks like it was dodged, and the fireball coming in on the Everwatcher, and he is now getting surrounded, and he's got pretty decent melee stats, but this is a lot of Dark Elf troops left to deal with, and a ton of fireballs coming in, just clobbering the Everwatcher more and more to death. Although it looks like at the moment we have just a few scrappy units of Dark Riders left standing. Another big fireball comes in, hitting the back, roasting the big old Everwatcher as the Supreme Sorceress comes in for glorious hand-to-hand combat once more. Squadron of Chariots are returning in the distance, but the Everwatcher, of course, being unbreakable, will fight to the death. He's a big, scary beast as well, so he may be able to terror route away a few of these units. He's having a good time just kind of mauling the evil pointy-eared princesses where possible, slapping them left, right and centre. And it looks like a spell may be coming down here as there is fire on the ground, although it may be just a little bit of an after effect from the Everwatcher, who does countercharge the Squadron of Chariots, destroying one model. Once again, Supreme Sorceress with that glorious cycle charging coming in, doing some massive damage to the Everwatcher. Looks like she's going to be able to flee and get back up into the sky once more, though, for a little bit of safety. Squadron of Chariots are terrified. It looks like the Dark Riders are terror routing as well. Balance of power, though, hugely in favour of the Dark Elves due to the health of the Supreme Sorceress compared to the Everwatcher, and a lot of these Dark Riders Riders should be able to rally and come back. She swoops in once more, rather bravely up against such an insanely powerful creature. Her steed rears back on its hind legs as she's jabbing and poking with her pointy little stick. And the Everwatcher down to 75 health. Looks like he's going to get a rather unceremoniously end here, being dragged down by a few Dark Riders, or perhaps a Scorch Runner Chariots. No, somehow he breaks the forces of the Dark Elves. It could be game over all of a sudden. Dark Riders getting tear routed. One unit is coming back, but if they get broken on the charge, this is certainly going to be bad news for them. But up in the skies, down swoops the Supreme Sorceress, trying to get that killing blow, as the last of the Dark Elves do indeed break here and start to rout. They are wavering, they are tired, but down goes the Everwatcher. The Sorceress and the last bastion of Dark Riders somehow claim victory. Look at that poor little bird down on his deathbed, and that is a valiant defeat for It's a Drive-By Gorston, who I believe is Deadly Bunny, so it's quite popular in the Total War Warhammer community. Now, this was I think a tournament game from a best of 5. I've got a few more replays from these guys as well, and every single one of their games was insanely close and well fought. So probably going to have a few more of them as well up on the channel rather soon, so certainly look out for them. Well played to both It's a Drive-By Gorston and Chosen One, two fantastic competitors going back and forth, scrapping to the end. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer action and all that good stuff. But anyway, on to the builds. So well played towards the Chaos. Real sticky build, and the Everwatcher there doing some fantastic damage. 15k damage dealt, 3000 damage value. Rather unlucky with that final transmutation. He saved an upgraded one for the end game, which was the right move to make, and it nearly pulled it off. Chosen One about to commit all his Dark Elf forces, but slight kind of hair trigger there, popping it slightly too early, did enable the Dark Elves to dodge the worst of that situation. But still, despite that fantastic play all round, and it really was a battle of the Skirmish Cavalry. These pesky Marauder Horsemasters did so much work, 8,600 damage dealt. The more lightly armoured variants, though, did struggle slightly more. And eventually the Skirmish game did go in favour of the Dark Elf forces. One thing I'm a big fan about this Dark Elf build in particular is the Elite Infantry in the mix as well. Hargrave Executioners and Blackguard of Nagrand, although they didn't do insane damage value all round, some pretty decent stuff, they enabled them to carve up the kind of cheap and cheerful chaff of the Warriors of Chaos, as well as those more kind of elite units, allowing them to then not be swarmed, and the Dark Riders and Dark Rider repeater crossbows were then enabled to win that skirmish game, which was absolutely huge. We can see across the board these guys getting some pretty insane damage value: 1,700, 1,700, 500, 1,200 and 1,100. Glorious skirmish play, which in the end did win the game. Also some nice delaying tactics in the end, just slowly dripping in unit after unit, allowing that Supreme Sorceress to get fireball after fireball off in, allowing her to rake up an impressive 13,000 damage dealt, 2,000 damage value, sealing the deal as well by getting in there and doing the dirty work in the end game. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.